So here we are. This is the 23rd,
23rd?
22nd,
It's kind
23rd
of like a tabletop.
of 2023 tabletop
We
conversation.
went to bed
And we're now back up.
and we think we've been to bed for hours.
I know.
I think it's a couple of hours.
Yeah, like
I
2
can't
hours.
get
Yeah.
over it.
Thought it was the whole night.
Oh.
So we're talking about fairy tales
And we're starting to realize.
and the esoteric wisdom of the encodement that's in them.
That's in fairy tales. And
Yeah.
why we've been so fascinated with them is that they are they're initiatory tales.
Mm-hmm.
They were all over the world because, and it's of the male and the female.
Mm-hmm.
They were initiatory tales of what the mystics sought, and the Templars sought, and the initiates of all the ancient wisdom
Mm-hmm.
they had in their initiation was to actually surrender life to an extent
Mm-hmm.
and cross over and then be able to come back.
Yeah.
And that's very much the story of Jack and the Beanstalk.
I love this. I love this insight.
Surrendering your life to climb into heights where you cross over
Mm-hmm.
and you go into the land
Realm.
of giant, with the land of great consciousness, and it's a realm and great wisdom and great abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And then you steal the golden goose and the harp, and you bring it back down to your everyday world. And this is basically what initiatory rites were, that they were brought to the almost the point of death. They cross over, they're like in a coma for 3 days, and then they come back into this world and they survive it, and they come back, they go to this other realms, and then they're able in 3 days to be there and cross over and come back with the knowledge.
Yeah.
That is Jack and the Beanstalk.
That is so
it's
true.
Beauty and the Beast. It's Red Riding Hood, passing through the wolf, and then being able to come back alive. They're all about that initiatory process, and as you look at them from the odd different angles they are, you realize that they're the same pattern of desire, of great desire in this world. It's not so much that people don't want to be in this world, but they want to have a power that is not of this world.
Yeah.
And that power is godlike. It's a power of mystic study, and people meditate and meditate to gain these powers. And it's like in Rumpelstiltskin. She can't have a child, the alchemical child, and then Rumpelstiltskin, says he can make that happen, and he does. And then this alchemical child, then in so much time, she has to give it up, and that's what. It's like you want the power and the knowledge of alchemy, and that the knowledge of an alchemical child. And so what you do is that you have to, like in the initiation, she has to give up life. She gives up that alchemical child, her future, and then crosses over and has the child, and it sits in that life, and then she has to return alive, because there's no point in it if you don't. But Rumpelstiltskin plans to keep her life. And so the initiate has to actually deal with Rumpelstiltskin in the other realms. And in it, they have to fight for their life to take this knowledge, this alchemical child, back into their ordinary world, because it is a desire to make that world less ordinary. And
That's incredible, because with that ascending up to the realm where you receive the enlightenment and wanting to bring it back down here in your daily life is the passage of the initiates that is, I think it's just fascinating that it's threaded through every
And
fairy tale.
Fairy tale, and it's also threaded in religion and
Yeah,
mysticism.
yeah.
That even in the Catholic, it was to like to one who had given up his life
Uh-huh.
and had resurrected and come back with the knowledge that there's this desire to consume that knowledge, to have that knowledge. And so that's why communion is important. To they made it that's what it is they eat the knowledge of one who has gone through that initiation and come back risen,
Uh-huh.
and in the stories, and so they think from that that they will be enhanced
Yeah.
by that.
Yeah.
And so communion is seen literally as an enhancement, and
Yeah.
and it's all really in that realm of the desire to be here, but let there be giants.
Yeah.
To be a giant here with the knowledge one has, so that you're able to levitate boulders.
Yeah.
I mean, to levitate is a skill that they used to call for magicians.
Mm-hmm.
But even the magician was an idea of an initiate,
Mm-hmm.
one who could go into another realm and bring back the ability or the knowledge. And so we're born with this practically, that for me,
It's like
I almost was born with it because my mother had surgery when she was pregnant with me, where she had a tumor, and the tumor was really getting to be as big as me, whatever that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were going to take it out,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like an initiatory I went through with her.
Yeah.
Because there was a 50% chance that I, as the alchemy child,
Mm-hmm.
would die.
Yeah.
And so when she went into the surgery, it's like I went through that process of like comatic process
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that babies don't usually go through during the pregnancy, but I had to go into the coma with her,
Mm-hmm.
and she had to release her life to gain my life.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's like I always felt that this what was thought as a tumor possibly would have been a twin that couldn't complete its passage. And at times, I feel as deeply as you and I are connected that possibly you were that twin. And so when you came back into life, your mother, your mother actually died at birth. And it's like you already had already gone through the initiation with me, and also you went through it, and so you were able to go to the other realm, because when a child that is blue becomes a blue baby, basically they're born and they start dying. And and when they change the blood over, then you're given life again. So it's like that initiation.
Yeah.
Your birth is that initiation. Other people see it. I think that's why I see you as so incredibly masterful in your way of loving and your way of seeing things, that you're not all upset about everything in the world as I get sometimes. And I think you're not, it's like you don't care, but you seem to stay centered. And it's not that I am never centered, but
Yeah, you're very
because
centered.
I'm fire, I'm more like a cauldron.
Well, the flames of you dance around. There's a lot of flickering energy. That's
Yeah.
so.
And your air, you
Yeah.
feed that.
So, yeah. But I was just thinking with the
But you feed it in a very masterful way. Feeding air, feeding air to fire can be really dangerous, and you just you're adept at that.
thank you. Well, I think with the whole kind of esoteric, which is esoteric is really etheric. It's the unseen but visible through other means of with the fairy tales. And then I was also thinking, because we were watching the thing with the Knights Templar with Freddie Silva, when he talked about their connection with John the Baptist, which I really hadn't thought about very much, but his whole process of baptizing people is for them to die underwater, to drown, and then come back up, which is that resurrection.
Gosh, it was an
That's that
story.
process, but it's shortcutted. It's shortened to just a moment, you know. So it's symbolic, but the symbolism, if it's taken in, is enlightening, and so it brings that space there. And I think the whole reason for the enlightenment is to make sense of a bigger picture of daily life. Daily life. How do you make daily life not the mundane, not the muggle world? How do you make it? How do you open your eyes to the magic of the animation
How you
of
work
everything
about
alive?
it as if you've been in another realm.
Yeah.
You know, when
So
any of
how do you walk
these
around with that realm
mythic,
in this realm? And it's like you're encapsulated in this sphere of enlightenment, or this bubble of expanded awareness, and you're able to walk around in an atmosphere that doesn't isn't primarily that.
and that's the divineness. You're able to be in the world, see the world, creating the world as divine. The divine is not troubled with what goes on in this world. And it's like, and how do you become like that in this world?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge is, like you said, when I was in my 30s, and I wasn't, the brownies I made, I didn't have any little extra current going on.
no special, just regular brownies.
Just regular brownies.
Standard, normal Betty Crocker style brownies.
And
or
I
Duncan
was
Hines.
and I put them in. I was fixing brownies, and I put them in the oven. And all at once I asked. I said, I want to know God in every moment. That I didn't want to just visit. I didn't want to visit just on Sunday or when I went to communion or when we said the rosary. I wanted it as who I was. And I remember that. Yeah, it's kind of like in Superman. Don't do that. Yeah. It's like unless you're really ready.
If you're really ready.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't jump off that roof. Don't jump off that unless you're really ready, because I'm in the process all these years of receiving that, and it's changed my life incredibly. And it feels wonderful sometimes and absolutely horrible at others. Not the communication, but what you go through to get that kind of communication. I mean, you die all the time.
Yeah.
It's like it goes to the other realm and comes back, and that's their initiation. But this is doing that every day.
Yeah.
And all at once, your life isn't right anymore. It doesn't fit. You're like a cookie cutter you're like a cookie cutter that makes the cookies very different.
Yeah.
And so all at once what you live and who you live with and everything you do has to have a much bigger room in it. All the rooms get too small.
Yeah.
Because it's like you become a giant. And it's like, let there be giants. Let this world be filled with initiates that go into the larger rooms of the mansion and come back and go back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the mystics I think a lot of the mystics speak of this in so many layers in so many ways, and I think that's why in a lot of the drawings, like of Hildegard and the work of um, Teresa of Avila,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk of these things, but it's like there's a magicalness in it. You can't go to the other realms and not bring back the magic.
Yeah.
There's no point. And so it's like all the things after like in Jack and the Beanstalk, he didn't go back and, oh, that's a nice table. I'll put that in my house. He brought back magical things,
Yeah.
and that is expected.
Mm-hmm.
And that they stay magical in this world.
Yeah, they don't just revert to a standardized
the golden
thing
goose
in this
doesn't always
in this realm.
He still lays his golden eggs.
Yeah, yeah.
The harp still plays,
Mm-hmm.
and that's quite an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot to learn how to do that, and that's why they call people who have teachers and study, they're adepts, and they become adept in it. That's why there are shamans, there are magicians, there are sorcerers, there are priests, there are gurus, there are holy men.
Yeah, and their adeptness doesn't diminish back to what was prior to their going into an illuminated or a numinous space. That's key because, like, anytime a creative is trying to reach into a more expanded space, they don't come back with an ordinary thing, because that would be a pointless exercise in doing anything,
It's as if they didn't go.
Yeah, yeah, and so
I think that's
and
why
the language, the way you write, you don't come back with just standardized Merriam-Webster words.
no.
You come back with what's in the energy inside a word,
What's
a
dead
living.
here is alive.
Yeah, and you don't revert it back. You don't translate it down. You don't dumb it down to a standardized.
Because it's the golden
thing.
goose.
Yeah.
I not come back with the golden goose and then tell it not to lay golden eggs.
Yeah, just
because people don't understand
the
that.
price of eggs has gone up, so just make regular eggs now. No, that's not how that works.
In fact, it's like if you go to these realms and you come back, and they turn into dust.
Mm-hmm.
The gifts you have, they become nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Or because somebody else thinks they're nothing, they become nothing to you.
That is what is expected from a culture. Okay, they may give you leeway to go off on your little jaunt, but don't come back with any changes that's going to change here.
Well, it's kind of like when they tell the young men that go in to become priests. Go into that. It's just so... And come back, though, and obey all the rules of the church, which are not working from that realm.
Mm-mm.
And it's pretty big.
Yeah,
and they
pretty
ask,
horrific to demand.
Yeah,
that.
And in this world, when anybody goes on a inward journey, when they come back, everybody expects them now. Come on, be your regular self, but they're never going to be their regular self. What's the point of going if you don't have the goose with the golden eggs, or you don't have the harp? And in fact, in the Jack and the Beanstalk, some of the stories that go a little farther than him just getting, away from the giant coming down the vine, is that the giant falls down the vine into his world. And that magnifies it. Because see, all at once, something unbelievable from that world falls down into your world,
and it's really there.
And it's really there. And it's like
It's like embedded in the ground. It's embedded in the foundation. It's real. It's right there.
And in a way, it's such a confirmation
Mm-hmm.
to Jack and
Mm-hmm.
everyone that
And
knows
everyone
Jack
yeah.
that
Oh my gosh, what
something
you're doing is real.
happened there, and
Mm-hmm.
this is part of what happened, and let there be giants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny now as we're now excavating more places in this
Mm-hmm.
world, they're actually finding giants.
And when they're finding, and they're working around the suppression of that information. There's so much information that has been found out, and that's what they're talking about, like with Antarctica. The the warming of the globe and the melting of the ice caps is exposing what's been there that has been unexplainable. But they're going to have to start explaining the
Well,
unexplainable.
it's kind of like the giant fell out of the sky.
Yeah, it's
It's
really.
like the spaceships fell out of the sky, beings of other worlds. And what it is this world is kind of invisible to us. And we walk around like it doesn't exist, and then one day it falls out of the sky.
Yeah.
And in 1947, it fell. The year I was born, it fell out of the sky, and then all at once.
And now all that's coming. I mean, the Pentagon's already acknowledged stuff. Things that they've known for a long time.
And we could get
So
scared
starting-
about it,
yeah.
or we could think,
Ooh,
"Oh my
what
God,
is
there
this?
are other realms."
Yeah.
And we could instead of being scared of the knowledge, or scared of what fell out of the sky, it could be proof that there is a land above.
Yeah.
And a land beyond. And in that land, yeah, there are things that are kind of ferocious, but there are things that are just fantastic, way beyond your imagination or your own immaculation.
Yeah.
That to be immaculate is one that has gone into the other realm and has come back pregnant with seemingly no source.
Yeah.
And that's what, when people start all at once coming back with knowledge that nobody can locate, it's like an immaculate conception.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing in the stories, like Magdalene and Mary Magdalene and Mary, that all that was is in the Jewish mysteries, the Essenes and all of that, were like women being like the Magdalenes were like watchtowers, and they all dressed in black, because I feel in a lot of ways they were like the black oracles. They were women that were trained in the mysteries, had crossed over and come back, and they were the voxes. They had the vox, and they had the black, which was the unknown. They were able to. They weren't afraid to speak the unknown.
Yeah.
And so they were black oracles, and I think it's like Mary Magdalene. She's really an immaculate. Mary was called that she conceived immaculate conception, and she is like immaculate, but it's the same immaculation. And what happened is that when she went to the other realm, she brought it back, which is rare. I mean, in that time, she brought it back as a physical child. That the alchemical child was also a physical child. That's quite a feat. Because the Essenes practiced these initiations with the female.
Yeah.
And the age, in the teen ages, is a time of opening initiations and immaculations. And I feel like that that Mary Magdalene is a black oracle. And I like and the whole story of Mary, you'd think that, like in the stories of the Templars, it would be the Mary, the Mother God, that they would be the female uh, that they all saw as an oracle for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was actually Mary Magdalene, because she was a Magdalene. They were watchtowers
Yeah,
and black
yeah,
oracles,
yeah.
and she was immaculated because she was able to join with uh, uh, a, a man and being such as Jesus
Mm-hmm.
and conceive.
Mm-hmm.
And but what was different is she did not have an immaculate conception.
Mm-hmm.
She had an immaculated conception.
Mm-hmm.
She actually conceived a physical, brought it back into the world, and it lived.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was in union with male, and part of the initiation is the union with the bride, the male as
Yeah.
union with the bride, and the equality of them and the balance that they create.
Yeah.
And so it's really unbelievably fascinating to to understand the initiatory process is really being able to be divine on this in this
Mm-hmm.
world,
And these and
to
these
keep the to know
and these
God in every
stories,
moment, the divine,
yeah,
whatever it
these
is.
stories or these repeated instances, because that's an ancient instance. That's an instance with her, but it goes way back further and further and further and further and further. It's a story that's repeated over and over and over and
But
over again
divine.
throughout. So, yeah, it's a divine occurrence
But what
that
is
happens.
divine? It's that
Yeah.
you die to the vine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Divine.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you die to the vine. You become the vine.
Mm-hmm.
You are not in a world that's split apart.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a world where in every moment you are engaged with um, what we call the divine,
Mm-hmm.
which is really being part of the vine.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
you actually travel back and forth
Mm-hmm.
easily,
And the
and
more
you
you,
bring this knowledge of
and the
this
more
other
you
world
do
where
that,
you are on the vine
and
back to the light.
the more you do that in
Mm-hmm.
your daily earth life, the more, in comparison to those that are not doing that,
Mm-hmm.
you become more and more dead to them because you're not of that standardized um, way of living life. You're outside of that, so you're in another realm.
Well, you have that realm in your daily life,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so that's not understandable to
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-mm.
sometimes.
Mm-mm.
I think that the that you even in the miracle stories of Jesus Christ, that it was all around the vine,
Mm-hmm.
um, the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the wedding where they didn't have any wine, and he
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
chose to, make the water wine. What he was really doing was blessing their initiation,
Yeah.
because in the initiation, the male and female now come into perfect balance,
Mm-hmm.
and the male, they are wedded, a
Mm-hmm.
wedded circumference, and then they can go back and forth in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is it's like they are wedded to the vine.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he changed water into vine,
Mm-hmm.
and then they went through the initiation.
Yeah.
And then their daily life was circumferic. Instead of a life of dying, it became circumferic, that it was everlasting,
Mm-hmm.
that it went all the way around and came all the way around again.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that I just came aware of, is that, and why my life is the way it is, but that it had been that way for many years. I wasn't aware of it. Is that in that time of my life, uh, was actually before it started Valley Hill that I had asked to know God in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember that uh, Valley Hill became symbolic of that request.
Mm-hmm.
And that request was really about initiation.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and so the name became like it just slid into place
Mm-hmm.
because uh, Valley Hill Road was what we lived on. But Valley Hill also is a reference to like the Egyptian mysteries,
Mm-hmm.
the valley, and then all the other mysteries that work with the mounds and
Mm-hmm.
the things inside these mounds, um, and then herbs in the initiations of they were given herbs to assist them in this passage by shamans
Yeah.
or priestesses or what, and then in there they went into the world of everlasting life,
Mm-hmm.
and then they brought it back into their daily life.
Yeah.
And so it was really symbolic, which I didn't really have to piece it out or understand it.
Mm-mm.
And and uh, and it's so odd because it was like a treasure, and it became more. Valley Hill became like a treasure to Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and then also became the fairy tale. It people told me it was a Cinderella story. It was a fairy tale,
Mm-hmm.
and see that's part of the initiatory.
Yeah.
And as a child, young girl, I read fairy tales until I was a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and what I was really reading was initiatory tales,
Mm-hmm.
and so Valley Hill was an initiatory tale, and and I went through that
Yeah. You
initiatory
found a
tale.
vehicle to
Hmm.
to
And it worked with
get that to
bees
others.
because we had 12 acres of herbs and flowers.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we had 12 acres of bees.
Yeah.
Lots, and I mean, I could never even tell millions how many bees
Mm-hmm.
because the plants were big and
Yeah.
wonderful. The basils
Hundreds of
were
thousands of bees.
up to your waist,
Mm-hmm.
and they were full of bees, and the coxscomb was full of lightning bugs, and
Mm-hmm.
there were the bees, two magical species, the lightning bug, and
Yeah.
very magical and magical in its own ways, and also magical in healing in this world. And it's the same thing with the bees.
Mm-hmm.
But the awesome thing about the bees is that their bodies are much bigger than their little tiny wings, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like something you would laugh at. It's like ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
How can that, how can he bring that body with those little wings up and fly around? And they don't really fly; they levitate,
Mm-hmm.
and their wings. It's in the speed of their
Mm-hmm.
wings that helps them lift this heavy thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not in like in a hummingbird with the
Mm-hmm.
feathers and things. And so the bees are about lifting. They're about lifting something way beyond you. They're
Mm-hmm.
about like how did the pyramids get
Mm-hmm.
put into place.
Mm-hmm.
It's and they are, but they're also about speed rate, and so they're about lifting with your consciousness heavy things by your frequency and your speed rate.
Yeah.
And so Valley Hill was the whole practice of working with this kind of consciousness speed rate. And so all at once, it became by the time that I fully, it was in full swing, Valley Hill was international.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, it happened in the chicken house when the
Mm-hmm.
kids were taking their naps. And it's like, it's a magical tale. It is a fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the impossible, and that was an initiatory journey.
Yeah.
And it did change my life. I completed that journey, and I was never the same. And uh, it was the bee became a spokesman for me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
he became totemic.
Yeah.
And he is totemic for you and I, which is
Yeah.
the same in storytell, with the work we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel like we're too little for this job.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need to be totem because it's
Yeah.
really a large consciousness
Mm-hmm.
that we're trying to levitate.
Yeah.
And the whole world is a very heavy, large consciousness right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a lot of lift off
Mm-hmm.
because it's very heavy. It's
Yeah.
got a lot of lead.
Yeah.
And so we realized together that there needed to really be a very fast speed rate because it
Yeah.
won't work.
Yeah.
The
consciousness has
yeah.
to take a leap, you know.
Oh God,
and
that's
it's like
so true.
and it's like in the initiation, it has to take a leap of faith. You know, it's the knight stepping off the edge of the cliff
With the grail.
with the grail. Nothing there, but there is something there. You have to know there's something there.
And the grail represented
there's
everlasting life.
Mm-hmm.
Like Valley Hill,
Mm-hmm.
herbs, and everlastings.
Yeah.
And it's like the flowers, what I
And that's
found.
the foundation of this work.
Yes, and the herbs themselves, instead of becoming actually complex,
Mm-hmm.
like beans, like drugs and things
Mm-hmm.
like that actually used
Mm-hmm.
to create that consciousness, I knew it had to be, we both knew there was another route.
Mm-hmm.
And that we had to find, we knew that it was important to find this other route that
Mm-hmm.
would raise consciousness without the way initiation was being done up to then. Because it was like we're an arc.
Mm-hmm.
We're not about the few, we're about the many.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a time that is needed for the many, and how fast can you get it to the many
Mm-hmm.
is the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's the only current we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so it had to be something then that...
Because that speeds up the speed rate, which is what is required, is what's needed.
And creates levitation.
Yeah. And that's what the patterns are about.
And
That's why that was the first thing we were given as we
we're
came
adept
together.
in pattern.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We understand pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And we use the patterns of everything and nature.
Yeah.
And there's a whole consciousness within the world of nature that is in a tremendous rate speed.
Wow.
And especially in the world of plant and flower. If they can become, these herbs become generators of an initiatory rite, and then they have that without even ingesting them.
Mm-hmm.
They have it within them. And so it was that consciousness that we started working with. Is how do you get that consciousness faster and easier? Because not everybody has that opportunity.
No.
There aren't the shamans in the world and the all of these, or kids are out there with nothing. They're trying to initiate themselves. They're using all kinds of drugs to try to do it, but they don't have a guide.
Yeah.
They don't have a priest, a priestess, temple. They don't have a shaman. They don't have what all these ancient people had built into their civilizations.
Yeah.
And so they're just out there, getting whacked off because they some of them are lucky. They get on through and come back, and it's very so it wasn't safe for the world to transact with this initiatory process if they didn't have any help.
Yeah.
But we realized the help is is in the relationship and the calling, that plants that are needed, you don't need to ingest them.
Mm-mm.
That they can come and help you through through an initiation, through patterns.
Yeah.
If you could if you could grasp the pattern of an idea,
Mm-hmm.
the pattern of a flower or something, or nature or an animal, but also a concept
Mm-hmm.
that was completely levitating, then you could change everything with ease. And instead of the few, there would be the many.
Yeah.
So we've always seen
Something
our work and our home as an arc.
Yeah. Something as simple as seeing a flower as more than an object.
Mm-hmm.
The flower is just a flower. Instead of the flower is giving you something. What is it? What's the conversation that's there? Why are you there with that plant? What's bigger than just it being an object? Because if it's an object, then you're just an object, and you have no depth other than the surface area that you are visible to other people, and that's all you are. And everyone knows there's more to themselves than just that. So there's more to everything than just that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the conversation in there?
And that conversation is the Magdalene language,
Mm-hmm.
the Sophic intelligentsia,
Hidden in plain sight.
hidden in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so all the gold, the threading within the patterns is about the gold actually levitating the lead,
Mm-hmm.
and allowing it a way out.
I'm glad we got up after our 2-hour all-night sleep into this.
Know it.
Yeah.
I think it's really so revealing. We come to the point where we couldn't hardly see where we're going. How we could
How can
how do
we
we take
levitate
this wisdom
Yeah.
and talk about it in this world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, that how can we levitate this? How can we take something that is as big as this is and move it, and it's to the point now where it is the simple thing is talking about it,
Mm-hmm.
talking about what is
Well, the
really
bee is
happening.
that consciousness.
And I was going to say the bee.
Here.
The bee is what levitates that. So
It's that consciousness.
So it's like the word belief, be
Leaf.
leaf, be a leaf, which is a part of the tree,
The
tree of life.
Oh
Be
my God.
that leaf.
Oh my God.
So, and that's why people stress just be yourself, be real, be this, be that. Is the trying?
You don't need to reach.
It's in the language.
Be the tree of
Yeah,
life.
is the language is full of pollination. It's self-pollinating.
Yeah, it is.
And then in the language that where you've gone, where you've traveled, where you've ascended for that enlightenment, that crossing over and bringing it back, you bring it back alive.
Yeah.
You bring it back alive. You don't bring it back.
It's breathing.
Yeah, it's breathing. It's alive. It's relationship-y-ol. The L, the IAL, the EL is life. You know.
I love that.
So
Talk more about that.
well, just that I think people, if we put this particular recording out there, but any of the things that we're talking about now, we've gone a pretty far distance in showing our atmosphere, where we live, what we're doing, what we're creating. This part we're speaking now is how it levitates, how does something that has so much magnitude, so much uh, apparent density, so much volume, how does that lift off? How does that get and the patterns are doing it. They they are being. They are
Being.
and they are beings.
Yes.
They are personas. They are actively
The bees
moving
in action.
this.
Mm-hmm.
They are moving this, and they were the first things, the first beings that came to us.
Mm-hmm.
Said, "How do we help? How can we be here and help? How
So
can we
each pattern
assist?"
is a being.
Mm-hmm.
We call them avatars, and
Mm-hmm.
each pattern is in the state of beingness,
Mm-hmm.
and it transfers that like the bee does when
Mm-hmm.
he takes the pollen and he takes it back
Excuse me.
to the
Yeah.
and it's edible. It becomes something edible. You
Mm-hmm.
don't sit around and eat pollen. We don't usually.
Mm-mm.
But the bee will take the pollen and then go back, and then it's transformed into the honey.
Yeah.
And then it eats the honey,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole world eats the honey.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. It's very sweet. Such a sweet idea.
Yeah.
And simple.
And it's
And complex.
and that's why there's this golden thread, like the pollen is golden. Sometimes there's other colors, but
Mm-hmm.
and the bee is gold and
Mm-hmm.
black, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like he's the golden thread of the black oracle, because of this gold and black is that the black oracle is about levitation,
Mm-hmm.
because things have to be levitated to land on the platform of the black,
Yeah.
to then uh, create off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think I just realized too. You know how the hives, the
Mm-hmm.
handmade hives that were woven from straw.
And they're geometric.
Yeah, but the straw that was woven, so that's spinning straw into gold.
That's in the story of Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah, spinning the straw, making it round, 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 and coming into a conical shape for the bees to have a place. And then they are the ones that transform nature into honey.
It's interesting because in the Rumpelstiltskin, we talk about that what he's about is creating a rumple in the skin in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what his world is about.
Yeah.
But when you think about a bee, he does all this beautiful stuff. But if you get in his way, he will sting you, and that'll be a great rumple in your skin.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you're inoculated. And then that story is so complex. It feels like I've looked at it for years, and all at once another window opened up, and I'm like,
there's another whole layer.
Talk about it. Is that whole thing. And we've done wonderful patterns to these initiatory stories. Rumpelstiltskin,
I think on the February long spoon we may bring
the fairy tales.
Some of the fairy tales forward.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
And maybe do that throughout the year.
Their initiatory
in the different
tales.
long spoons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've written in length an initiatory tale. It's like, I remember when I was a young woman that they had the unfractured fairy tales on, and I just thought that was fascinating. I just loved it. But it is like unfracturing the fairy tale, is that you retell it in its own language.
Yeah.
And its own initiatory tale rights, and it becomes different. And we did the patterns of the true initiatory tale. And so when you look at each of them, are not a bunch of pages, they're one, is that carries the pattern of the original initiatory tale.
Yeah. And I just realized, I'll just say it here so, as a reminder too, but the changeover and using the issue program that's going to be what we use for our flip books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Inside that particular one can take active links that you can click on and move to something
Mm-hmm.
else. It can take video and audio. It can be embedded in there. So it's like we're starting to corrugate and bring together all uh, these different tools, different storytellings, different layers of initiation
Mm-hmm.
into uh, an enjeu of telling.
Well, it's so funny because in this time, all this technology, people are, confused about, is that
Mm-hmm.
good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a good witch
Sure.
or a bad witch? And really, the truth is, they're neither. They're new,
Mm-hmm.
because I think technology is very much like bee technology.
Mm-hmm.
Is that technology takes things that are heavy
Mm-hmm.
and lightens them and makes them very fast.
Very
So
fast.
their wings become about as fast as bees.
Fast as light.
And they're lifting things that were impossible. It's like the impossibility of being 35 years in this work
Mm-hmm.
and creating all kinds of ways to take it in. And I was really objected to technology in the beginning. I was Robert was fine with it, but I wasn't. And and it was just like, um, what I'm getting to is it's almost like bees, and they
Mm-hmm.
think that that the bees aren't really from here.
Mm-hmm.
That the technology of what bees are and the way they are and how they is really from somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
and that it came here to this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also that it's thought we call the technology AI because it's what is it,
Artificial.
artificial intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
but it also is like it's not really from here.
Mm-hmm.
It could be
Alien.
alien. And there's all this
Alien
confusion
intelligence.
about it, and I'm thinking, why did we come in with this and work with this, and we go and we use this technology? In fact, it's what we were waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Something
so
fast
there's
enough to
something,
carry this information.
and so there is, you could see all the horrible things that
Mm-hmm.
this can come to,
Mm-hmm.
or you could see that it's very bee,
Mm-hmm.
and that it is high VO in the sense that people learn to cooperate and live
Mm-hmm.
in peace and live together
Mm-hmm.
and create the sweetness of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a matter of perspective. But I had to change mine. It wasn't like I sat around, oh, I want to do this and
Mm-hmm.
waiting for it's like, well, most of all is like nobody bought all of our work. We were ahead of our time, and so we weren't rich.
Mm-mm.
We didn't have the money to make books, put them out. We were odd, so it's like we knew that we weren't going to go through the critique system that works with everything that goes out, because we are something that's going out that may not
In a different way.
be bound by those rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, we get special, like, fairy godmothers that come, and we receive their patronage or their wisdom, their caring, fairy godmothers and fairy godfathers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to wait for. We often feel very Cinderella
Yeah.
and transformative. And so we receive the pumpkin and the carriage and going to the ball
Mm-hmm.
for a few hours and then being thrown back out.
Yeah.
And and that's part of the passage. And
Mm-hmm.
so that we have to learn to see a pumpkin as a carriage, and the whatever became the horses,
Mm-hmm.
and 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 that all at once we're wonderful and beautiful. And then we're thrown out like trash, and then all at once,
Yeah.
we're down to no money. And then we realized that as much as I didn't want to work with the technology, that it had the magic threads.
Mm-hmm.
threads that we didn't have to have a lot of money for.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a way.
Mm-hmm.
It was the read for us. And so Robert learned a lot about it, and then practically I was tricked into it um, uh, by a dear friend that patronized us and then invited us into that world.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, let me say her name,
Mm-hmm.
was Joyce Tennyson. And I felt like, I didn't know Joyce all that well. And so I was amazed that she knew somehow that we needed help, that we needed not to sell our original pieces because they're for much more than just one,
Mm-hmm.
and that we needed to learn the technology to work with prints of what we did. So it's like copying. So it's like very be like hiveal as that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
instead of just you have a whole hive, and so um, we went to dinner one night uh, at her home, and we were introduced to two of her assistants, and we had a wonderful dinner. And then later we went downstairs, and they were going to
To
teach
her
us
studio.
to her studio,
Mm-hmm.
and we had. I think by then she had already given us a camera to use to try to take digital,
Mm-hmm.
and then how to work with a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you had done that.
Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so Robert had some knowledge, so I was very comfortable. And they talked to how to work, take your pictures to print. And so all at once, Robert learned how to use the machinery and how to clarify a painting and everything. And so I was just sitting there. And then afterwards, they turned around to me and they said, "Now it's your turn." And I was just dumbfounded. I didn't even. I said, "Oh, that's not for me. I don't even know how to turn it on." And
Computer.
huh?
A computer.
A computer.
I
I
don't
did
know.
not turn on. No, I turned on a computer. And at times when Robert was on it a lot, I felt like I had competition there. And I was a little angry at it because of just the amount of time it takes to learn it. And they said, "Oh no, no, you can't leave until you learn how to do this." So that was the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Initiation.
then it was my initiation,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't leave until I at least knew how to turn it on and work some of the programs.
Yeah.
And then I began the training process. We
Mm-hmm.
both did over the summer.
Yeah.
And it was a greatest gift. And it's I'd say, all people have this otherworldliness about them that they're in communication with. And it depends on who they are, how often they utilize that and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel very grateful to her uh, for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a great amount of time and materials were given to us to utilize. And so it's like if you don't get money one way,
Mm-hmm.
you get wings. You
Mm-hmm.
get bee wings, and
Mm-hmm.
you get wings that can go so fast. And so here it's like, oh well, you're driving around in a car. You need to become. You need wings like bees. You can lift
Mm-hmm.
heavy objects, and that's what we got. With the technology, we learned how to levitate
Mm-hmm.
very heavy things like books we had written and decks we had done and artwork we had done, where we could actually make it um, uh, available to the whole world.
Yeah.
We could send a pattern from here to any part of the whole world now,
Mm-hmm.
and we have. And so that is mystical.
Mm-hmm.
That is an initiation and bringing back from the other realm that into our living world.
Yeah.
In the daily world. And it's like it's no good if it doesn't work here.
Mm-mm.
So if you have imprintable patterns that you know about from your travel, from other dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
and you see how they work, and you bring them back, and they're dead,
Yeah.
no way. So we brought them back, and they're alive. there's no point if they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're alive, but there is a lot to getting that whole concept lifted.
Mm-hmm. Lifted enough in this daily earth realm that you have room and breath enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's to.
So it had to become unlimited.
It had to get to a point where, instead of not talking about it, to not talk about it made no sense.
Well, it's something living in the other realm.
Mm-hmm.
To bring it back,
and then not say anything.
It's not alive.
Mm-hmm.
But we know it's alive.
We know
so
it is.
We work with it as the livingness it is, and don't limit it by other people who are not willing to bring back what's alive from those worlds.
Yeah.
And
we're literally awake to it right now. We woke up tonight to talk about this because we're awake to it.
We almost come to the point we felt it was impossible to. But no matter how, it is such a huge concept that we didn't know how to bring all of it in all of its informational qualities.
Were we up to the task? Were we able to...
alive in this world.
Yeah, were we able to speak about it?
These patterns are avatars.
They are avatars. And they do make a difference.
And so we're on that Grail quest.
We're on this part of the journey now.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, so are you.
This work is everlasting.
You're on this part of the journey.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I can't wait to talk some more about this.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
okay,
I better go to bed.
I think so. I'm starting to. Good night. Well, this is a good 1 hour talk. I love it.
Usually we do a half an hour, but this is nice.
Yeah. So, until next time, this is Robert and
Suzanne.
And we're Clarity.
We're Clarity.
Be safe.
Be safe.